0347 a.m., October 12, 2025, near Rostov-on-Don, Russia. 20 Ukrainian FPV kamikaze drones roared forward, slamming straight into a Russian military train, the vital supply lifeline for the southern front. The bridge shudders. Sparks rain from the rails. Steel screams. In an instant, the night ignites. Russia fires back instantly. Pantsir 1 turrets spin and fire. 57 E-6 missiles tear through the sky. Krasuka 4 floods the spectrum, and a Ka-52 alligator roars in low, hunting for the pilots. Explosions punch the air. Searchlights stab the smoke. Orders ricochet through jammed radios. Did Ukraine just outsmart one of the world's most advanced defense networks, or walk straight into the deadliest trap Russia has ever set? Let's find out. At 2:47 a.m., October 12, 2025, Rostov-on-Don, Russia, just 60 miles from the Ukrainian border. A small team of Atesh partisans lies hidden in the frost-covered grass, 300 feet from a critical railway line. A loitering reconnaissance aircraft glides silently on autopilot, its sensors fixed on the steel veins below. Across the river, its engines echoing like distant thunder. The rails tremble, the bridge groans, and sparks flicker beneath the steel wheels. To the men hiding below, every vibration feels like the pulse of a living beast. Meanwhile, the Russian officers assigned to guard this sector are asleep in their cabins, unaware that their entire supply artery is seconds from collapse. But the drone's target isn't the train. It's the signal control hub hidden in a concrete box beside the track, the small electronic brain that keeps Russia's supply artery alive. When it is hit, the entire network will lock up, freezing thousands of tons of military cargo in place. A moving machine will become a stranded monument. And tonight, just like in the dark days of World War II, Rostov once again becomes the place where empires learn that every war has a weak link. This strike was not improvised. It was the culmination of 94 days of invisible warfare, a digital siege waged from orbit. A silent network of Western satellites and drones watched Rostov-on-Don without blinking. From Lantiris infrared satellites in Britain to the RQ-4 Global Hawk flying out of Sicily, their sensors captured 4.2 terabytes of imagery and signal intelligence. Heat trails, rail vibrations, even the chemical residue of diesel fumes along the tracks. Inside an underground facility near Kyiv, Ukraine's cyber intelligence unit processed 4.7 terabytes of intercepted Russian transmissions, breaking down fuel shipment codes, engine telemetry, and encrypted logistics schedules. The findings were chilling. 68% of Russia's southern ammunition flow, including nearly 40,000 artillery shells per week, moved through one single bridge, the Rostov crossing. Destroy it, and the front lines in Kherson and Zaporizhzhia would lose half their firepower within 48 hours. Human intelligence filled the gaps machines couldn't see. A defected railway engineer smuggled out blueprints of the signal control grid. Another insider leaked the maintenance schedule of the Nebo-M radar. One note stood out. The radar's 3.6-degree ground blind spot had never been recalibrated since 2018. That gap, less than the angle of a streetlight, would become Ukraine's doorway to history. Meanwhile, psychological operations began. Anonymous whispers about an FSB traitor inside Rostov Command spread panic. Night patrols were slashed by 50%. Officers stopped trusting their own men. Paranoia replaced discipline. As the operation neared launch, General Oleksandr Syrsky, commander of Ukraine's ground forces, watched the final briefing. His words were sharp, without triumph, only truth. This isn't an airstrike. It's a mirror. It shows the world how fragile an empire looks when the lights go out. The silence before the storm had meaning now, not fear, but inevitability. The kind of silence that precedes history. The silence was only the beginning. To see how it erupted into fire and how one drone altered history, hit subscribe and follow the story. At 2:51 a.m., the order was given. From a launch site 12 miles west of Rostov-on-Don, the loitering reconnaissance aircraft began its descent. It cut through the fog at 122 miles per hour, hugging the terrain at barely 30 feet. gliding inside the 3.6-degree blind zone that Russian radar could never reach. Below, the low rumble of the 42-car military train grew heavier, vibrations pulsing through the rails like a heartbeat before cardiac arrest. The Russian crew inside had no reason to suspect anything. Their radar screens were blank, their radios silent. It was supposed to be another routine crossing. Until that moment. Through its thermal lens, the aircraft locked onto a concrete signal control relay, a gray block no larger than a refrigerator, yet it was the brain guiding every train between Rostov and Taganrog. Destroying it wouldn't just break a circuit, it would paralyze 280 miles of track and trap 3 other supply convoys behind it. At 2:53, it struck. The 34-pound shaped charge sliced clean through concrete, releasing a jet of molten copper burning at 6,000 degrees Celsius. The blast was small, precise, almost surgical, but its consequence was vast. Within seconds, every signal light in the district went dark. Inside the locomotive, alarms blared. The driver slammed the emergency brakes, as per rail protocol. No signal means full stop. The train screamed across the tracks, its steel wheels grinding sparks into the night. Seconds later, silence fell. A 2,200-ton column of armor and ammunition had come to a complete halt in the open, motionless, exposed, and alone. What followed was more than an interruption. It was the moment a moving artery of Russia's war machine turned into a dead vein. And for the partisans watching through thermal scopes in the dark, it was the signal they had been waiting for. The first heartbeat of destruction yet to come. At 2:56 a.m., Rostov-on-Don erupted into chaos. The air cracked with alarms as the entire southern rail network went dark. Every signal light was dead. Every command line fell silent. In bunkers across the city, officers shouted for answers, their headsets hissing with static. For 41 seconds, Russia's most fortified logistics corridor was blind, deaf, and leaderless. No one knew why the system had failed. They thought it was a malfunction. It wasn't. It was bait. Then came the first shockwave. Down by the river, hidden beneath the heavy fog, the ATESH partisans moved into Phase 2. Hours earlier, they had planted 18 Claymore mines and directional charges along the bridge foundations and rail junctions, 12 in total, each packed with 700 steel ball bearings and timed to detonate in perfect sequence. Their goal wasn't destruction for its own sake, it was to force Russia to expose its defenses. At 2:57 a.m., the leader gave the signal. The mines detonated in flawless rhythm, 12 simultaneous blasts tearing through steel at 4,000 feet per second. A storm of shrapnel and dust ripped across the bridge, bending metal like paper. The roar rolled through the Don Valley, echoing off the riverbanks. Within seconds, a 500-foot section of track was gone. The 42-car train, still loaded and locked in place, now sat stranded, cut off, immobile, and exposed. The explosions triggered exactly what Ukraine wanted. 15 miles south, a Panzer S-1 air defense battery jolted awake like an animal kicked in its sleep. Its radar screens flashed alive, locking onto the first signature in the sky. A Bayraktar TB-2 flying high and slow at 11,000 feet. It was bait, pure and simple. The Russian crews didn't hesitate. 6 57E-6 missiles launched almost simultaneously, streaking upward in spirals of smoke and flame. The sky lit up as the TB-2 vanished in a burst of fire. To the Russian operators, it looked like victory, but it was the opening move in a deeper game. While they celebrated, a new signal appeared, sharper, closer, and moving differently. A captured Orlan 10 drone, reprogrammed by Ukrainian engineers, was now broadcasting a false X-band radar signature, identical to that of a Ukrainian strike drone. The Panzer's computer instantly locked on and fired again, this time at the wrong target, a Russian ammunition depot just 2 miles away. At 2:59 a.m., 6 missiles slammed into their own bunkers. Inside were 15,000 pounds of 122mm shells. The result was apocalyptic. A fireball 300 feet high burst into the sky, lighting up Rostov like a second sunrise and shaking windows 30 miles away. In less than 5 minutes, Ukraine hadn't just stopped a train. It made Russia destroy itself. No bombers, no air raid, only deception, precision, and timing. Proof that in modern war, intelligence can strike harder than any missile. At 3:02 a.m., the fire over Rostov burned like a false dawn. The explosion at the ammunition depot had turned night into day. Every Russian radar, every command post in the region was now fully awake. Across the Don Valley, helicopters scrambled, searchlights swept through smoke, and anti-air batteries roared to life. But in the chaos, one order stood out above the rest: find them. From the Rostov airbase, a Ka-52 Alligator gunship lifted into the air. Twin rotors sliced through the haze as the attack helicopter climbed to 6,000 feet, guided by coordinates relayed from the Nebo-M radar. Its mission was not reconnaissance. It was retaliation. Equipped with Viker-1 anti-tank missiles, 30mm cannon pods, and thermal optics sensitive enough to detect a human body from 5 miles away, the Ka-52 was built to hunt and kill in the dark. Below, the 6-man ATESH team was on the move. They carried their gear through flooded grasslands, heading for an extraction point 3 miles north. The glow of the burning depot lit the horizon behind them. Their radios were silent. Too risky. Every transmission could expose them. All they could hear now was the echo of distant rotor blades drawing closer. At 3:08 a.m., the Ka-52 found them. Through its targeting pod, the crew spotted 3 heat signatures: human bodies and the faint warmth of electronics. The gunner locked on instantly and fired a Viker missile. Traveling at Mach 1.8, it would reach its target in 14 seconds. The partisans dove for cover, but you can't outrun a missile. That's when the team leader pulled their last card: a homemade radio frequency jammer built from scavenged drone parts and a lithium battery. It wasn't sophisticated, but it was powerful enough to flood the 5.8 GHz spectrum with chaotic noise. For 9 endless seconds, the missile seeker fought to find its target, and failed. It veered off course and exploded harmlessly in a nearby field, throwing a wall of dirt into the air. Inside the Ka-52 cockpit, disbelief turned to rage. The pilot swung the gunship around, switching to the Peresvet high-energy laser, an experimental system meant to blind drones and optics. A beam of invisible light sliced through the smoke, burning at 1.5 megawatts. But Ukraine's next move had already begun. 1 mile away, a second Ukrainian team launched 20 FPV kamikaze drones, each carrying 2 pounds of C4. They flew low, hugging the treetops, invisible to radar. The operators guided them manually through fiber optic links, immune to any jamming. For the Ka-52, the hunt was over. For Ukraine, the counterattack was just beginning. At 3:14 a.m., the depot still burned on the horizon, but the mission wasn't finished. The Ka-52 had pulled back, yet the bridge still stood, wounded, shaking, but alive. For the Ukrainian partisans, the final order was simple: make sure it never carries another train again. From a hidden ravine 1 mile north, a second support team powered up their consoles. Within seconds, 20 FPV kamikaze drones lifted into the air, each loaded with 2 pounds of C4. Their engines screamed like hornets as they raced toward the Rostov bridge at 60 miles per hour, flying just 10 feet above the water to evade radar. The bridge stretched 600 feet, a steel giant weighing over 18,000 tons, already fractured from earlier blasts. The swarm didn't need to destroy it outright, only to hit where it hurt most. Each drone locked onto load-bearing pillars and central supports. At 3:17 a.m., the first impact struck, then another, then 10 more in rapid succession. Within 6 seconds, the bridge vanished in a chain of detonations. Shockwaves at 30,000 psi ripped through concrete and steel. Sensors in Kyiv showed the moment it failed: the tremor, the bend, the final collapse. At 3:19 a.m., the Rostov bridge fell, sending a 42-car train, over 2,200 tons of armor and munitions, plunging into the Don River. For 5 months, that bridge had fed Russia's southern armies. In less than 5 minutes, it became their graveyard. Not destroyed by bombers, but by 20 drones and the brilliance of those who refused to lose. At 3:32 a.m., the fires over Rostov finally began to fade. The bridge was gone, ripped apart, lying in the Don River like a carcass of twisted steel. Smoke rolled across the valley, glowing red from burning fuel. One by one, communication lines collapsed. The Russian Southern Command had gone silent. By sunrise, satellite images confirmed the destruction, a 600-foot gap where the bridge once stood, 500 feet of rail mangled, and a cratered depot still burning 6 miles away. In one night, over $40 million in infrastructure vanished. The convoy that once fed 60% of Russia's southern front no longer existed. Within 48 hours, Russian artillery fire in Kherson and Zaporizhia fell by more than half. But the chaos that followed was worse. Inside Russian command posts, panic spread like infection. Reports of internal sabotage triggered suspicion and shouting. Entire divisions stopped coordinating for 72 hours. Ukraine's counteroffensive advanced 3.5 miles, reclaiming ground once considered lost. In Kyiv, this was not seen as luck, but as proof. Each success like this echoes far beyond the front line. Every time Ukraine triumphs, Congress in Washington finds it harder to refuse new aid, and the world finds it harder to look away. General Oleksandr Syrsky called it a mirror showing what tyranny looks like when it meets intelligence. Analysts across Europe and the US called the attack a glimpse into the future. A war won not by numbers or brute force, but by precision, knowledge, and will. For those who survived that night, the silence afterward was heavier than battle. They hadn't just destroyed a bridge, they had built a legend. If you believe intelligence beats tyranny, hit subscribe, share your thoughts below, and tell us, what would you have targeted next? The fuel depots or the radar systems?